humans, Disney fans, join us today as we talk all about the circle of life. Pennsylvania is right next to Ohio.
Hey, that's not right.
What? What do you mean? Those aren't the words?
No.
Oh, well, how embarrassing. Hey everybody, Melanie here from Lend Me Your Ears, and I have to start off before we jump into The Lion King to tell you all about these ears. They are from Mandy, and she got them from a trip to Disneyland. Mandy's favorite Disney movie growing up was The Little Mermaid because she herself is a redhead. She said she used to pretend she was Ariel, and anytime she went swimming, she used to cross her feet and pretend she had flippers. So thank you, Mandy, for lending your ears. Well, friends, Disney just keeps those remakes coming. Already this year, I gave you a Dumbo review and an Aladdin review, and you should check those out when you get a chance. And now it is The Lion King's turn. Guys, I was so nervous going into this film because some of the critics are absolutely panning it, giving it bad ratings, saying things like disaster, train wreck, and I was like, I don't even know if I want to go see this movie. Well, I don't know what kind of a perspective I took going into the film that made me like it, but guys, like, spoiler alert, I loved it. I actually really liked it a lot. I think it might actually be my favorite remake of an animated classic thus far. This one and The Jungle Book I really like a lot, which is funny because they're both about animals and they're both directed by Jon Favreau. I guess that means out of all the Disney remake directors, he's my favorite. Because no one has ever made that joke before. And I'm not really sure exactly what that perspective was that I took in the theater that had me leave the theater happier than most people who had seen the film. I think maybe I'm a little bit more forgiving of the voice actors since they aren't actually, acting with their full bodies in a live action film. I might be a little bit more forgiving. And before I went to see the movie, one of the big criticisms that I read was that since the animals looked so realistic that it seemed unnatural for them to be talking and speaking. And in fact, I do know some people who just do not care for talking animals in movies. It really just is off-putting to them. And as it so happens, I have a people here with me today. Everybody welcome my friend, Courtney! Thank you, Courtney, for being here today. Now, Courtney, how do you feel about talking animals in movies?
I hate it.
Okay, well, thanks, Courtney, for being here today. Let's give her a round of applause. But talking animals really do not bother me too much. And I found this criticism really interesting because I'm actually currently reading a biography about Walt Disney. And one of the things that it said was that in the early days of animation, a lot of critics said that they thought that if cartoons were speaking, it would seem unnatural. I'm going to read you an excerpt. In the first place, there were psychological hurdles to overcome in the very notion of talking animations. Though audiences expected to hear people talk or sing, they were not initially accustomed to hearing voices from drawings. Drawings are not vocal, Wilfred Jackson said. Why should a voice come out of a cartoon character? Animators were concerned that it would seem unnatural, peculiar, and off-putting, which is one reason why Walt insisted that his sound had to be realistic. I don't actually wear reading glasses, I just thought it would look cool. So going into the movie, I knew I was going to be pretty forgiving of these realistic animals speaking and delivering lines. However, I do think it presents a very interesting catch-22 in that it leaves the performances feeling a little bit stale. There's only so many emotions you can put on a realistic-looking animal's face before it looks, for lack of a better term, cartoony and ridiculous. Outside of anger and fear, animals really don't show emotion on their face. And my husband, for example, left the theater feeling like the performances were very wooden. And I said, I really don't think it's the voice actor's fault. I think they were emoting, but you didn't see it on the animal's face because that would have looked silly. Whatever the case may be, I was able to look past this and I really actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I would give it like a high 8, like an 8.8, 8.9, or maybe even a low 9. Like, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's not without its faults, and here's where Melanie gets critical. That's right, we're gonna break this movie down by acting, songs, and storyline. And from here on out, there be spoilers. So you've been warned. Let's go ahead and start with the acting. There's really absolutely no way to look at this movie without comparing it to the original, so I thought that we'd do something kind of fun with the different characters in the two films. If a character was better in the original 1994 version, we'll give 1994 a point. If the character was better in the 2019 version, we'll give 2019 a point. Let's begin. Mufasa. No question, don't even have to think about it. 1994 was better. It gets a point. Yes, I know, I hear you screaming at me through the screen. I know it's the same actor in both films. James Earl Jones, of course, voiced Mufasa in both versions. However, 25 years ago, James Earl Jones' voice was very strong and powerful, and it sounded like a lion king. However now, 25 years later, his voice is noticeably aged. It sounds weak, it sounds tired. It sounds like an 88-year-old guy. Funny because he actually is an 88-year-old guy. And God bless him, I'm so glad he's still around. And for nostalgia's sake, it's really cool that he was able to do this remake. But I think I honestly would have preferred it if they had found a younger, stronger voice for Mufasa this time around. Scar. Guys, someday I want to do a ranking video of all Disney villains, and I can tell you right now without a shadow of doubt that Scar will absolutely be at least in the top 3, if not the absolute top of the list for big bad Disney villains. And one of the main reasons for this is Jeremy Irons' amazing performance in the 1994 classic. Chiwetel Ejiofor played Scar straight up evil. I mean, there was no gray area. Whereas Jeremy Irons handled him with a little bit, just a wisp, if you will, of playfulness with this seething sarcasm where you could kind of believe that the rest of his family was like, Scar, he's such a pain in the backside, but he's harmless. But no, the 2019 Scar should have been banished, like a long time ago. He was clearly up to no good. In fact, it was almost humorous when Scar leaves Mufasa after Mufasa confronts him about not being at Simba's birth ceremony, and Mufasa goes, what am I gonna do with him? And it's like, get rid of him, he's terrible, he's gonna kill you, like there was just no shadow of a doubt that he was evil. I much prefer Jeremy Irons' rendition. 1 point for 1994. Moving on to Zazu. I was really apprehensive about this one because I love Rowan Atkinson's portrayal in the 1994 version. And while I did come to enjoy John Oliver in 2019, I'm sorry, I gotta give it to Mr. Bean over here in 1994. All right, now let's talk about Rafiki. Guys, no competition. Again, 1994 gets the point. Hands down. I should have felt chills when Rafiki realized that Simba was still alive, but that just totally fell flat for me. And when Rafiki goes and meets with grown-up Simba, I love how in the animated version, he totally goes all Yoda on him. And yes, I did just use Yoda as a verb. I'm sorry, silly me. Use Yoda as a verb. I totally did. But in the animated classic, Rafiki meets Simba, and it totally is reminiscent of when Luke meets Yoda in the Dagobah system, and he completely writes him off because he's acting like a toddler. And Rafiki's whole Squash Banana song has that same feel, and I loved it, and I really missed it in this remake. Well, so far we have a little bit of a landslide going on, but let's move forward and see what happens. Now we're gonna talk about young Simba and young Nala, and I gotta say, guys, I'm giving these points to 2019. I really enjoyed these performances by these young actors. I loved their speaking lines, and I loved their singing when they did I Just Can't Wait to Be King. I mean, I loved Jonathan Taylor Thomas growing up, but guys, I gotta say, 2019 gets the point. Timon! Guys, it was kind of nice from a nostalgia standpoint that they did bring back James Earl Jones, but if they were going to bring anyone back, it should have been Nathan Lane. No one was going to be able to even come close to his Timon. And while I didn't mind Billy Eichner's performance, it was not Nathan Lane. Point 1994. Pumbaa, Pumbaa, Pumbaa! Guys, I think I'm gonna surprise a lot of you when I say that I actually really enjoyed Seth Rogen's performance of Pumbaa. So much so that I really can't pick which one I like more. It's a wash. I'm just gonna give a point to each. Grown-up Simba. Again, no competition. This time the points go into 2019. Donald Glover was so much better than Matthew Broderick. I'm sorry. He has the perfect amount of playfulness and power in his voice to really make Simba shine. And I mean, Matthew Broderick is great, but I just never quite understood that casting in the first place in 1994, so 2019. And lastly, grown-up Nala. Ooh, guys, I'm torn. I'm so torn. I honestly thought that Beyonce did a great job with all of her spoken dialogue, but you guys, she ruined Can You Feel the Love Tonight with all of this vocal stylizing. It was almost a different tune by the time she was done with it. It's like when you go to the ball game and they're like, all rise for the national anthem, and the person gets up there and they're all like, oh, say can you see? Don't do that. Don't ever do that. She ruined that song. Can you tell I'm upset about it? It was the most disappointing part of the movie. But if we're just going on delivering lines, I really did prefer her to 1994 Nala. So I think what I'm gonna do is just go off of her acting and not her singing, because she can sing. She sounds great doing her own songs. But I'm gonna give it to 2019. So as you can see, everybody, acting really ended up being pretty even across the board if you look at the big picture, at least in my humble opinion. Let's move on to the songs. Guys, I think one of the things that makes this movie so great is the phenomenal songwriting of Elton John. All the songs are great, and all the songs in the 1994 version are great. Some of them didn't all get their due in the remake. Now, Circle of Life was perfect. I got chills when they played it at the beginning. I got chills when they did it at the end. I have zero complaints with that one. I Just Can't Wait to Be King was also wonderful. Like I mentioned before, I loved these young actors that voiced young Simba and young Nala, and I really loved this song. Now, this song has some major laugh out loud moments in the animated classic that really weren't there in the remake because you're working with such realistic looking animals, but it was still really good. Be prepared. I already mentioned how much I love Scar as a Disney villain, and I was kind of disappointed that they really changed this song like a lot. Changed the lyrics, cut it way down, and I wish they had left the song intact. I think it's one of the best Disney villain songs. Maybe the only other one that compares is Poor Unfortunate Souls, but it's so good. I understand them cutting like all that Nazi-esque imagery, like totally get that, but I wish they had left the whole song in. Hakuna Matata. I like this one too. They changed a few things, but overall, I really enjoyed it. The young warthog scene with the baby warthog was so cute, and I didn't even mind that they cut out the Pumbaa, not in front of the kids. That was okay because I thought it was really cute how Pumbaa was like, well, are you gonna stop me? It was really great. I enjoyed this one. And I really enjoyed how they extended in the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. I loved that whole scene. It was super fun with all the other animals. I enjoyed that also. Guys, I think you already gained an understanding of how I felt about Can You Feel the Love Tonight. And not only did I feel like she ruined the song with all the stylized riffing, but I also felt like Beyonce and Donald's voices just, they didn't really vocally sound well together. They didn't mesh. This was just the biggest miss for me in the whole movie. Then there was this new song called Spirit that I believe also Beyonce sang when Simba is running back to Pride Rock, and I felt strongly that this wasn't necessary, and here's why. I think it would have been amazing if they had instead played He Lives in You from the Broadway version of The Lion King. I mean, if you're gonna throw a different song in the mix anyway, at least have it be one that Broadway fans such as myself will be really excited to hear. It's a great song. You should check it out if you're not familiar with the Broadway version. They did play a version of it in the credits though, so that was cool. So once the movie was over, I got up and I was like, all right, time to go home. And then I stopped dead in my tracks because I heard a very familiar voice. Yes, it was Elton John with a brand new song playing during the credits. Now, I really like Elton John's music, so I may be a little bit biased, but I really love this new song. It's called Never Too Late, and I had to look up the lyrics because it's Elton John.
Hey kids, shake and lose a lemon. Politicians wanna sing, gonna make a feather.
Hold me close, young Tony Danza.
But the message of the song is really great, and it's one that ties into the fact that no matter how long or how far Simba had wandered from home, it's never too late to come back and make things right. It's a great song, you should check it out. So there you have it, that covers all the songs. Now let's move on to storyline. It's pretty much the same! I was actually really pleased that they didn't change much of the original storyline, with two exceptions that I noticed that they did change, and they weren't necessarily a bad thing. The first difference that I noticed is that during the wildebeest stampede, Scar actually tells Zazu, go get help, go fetch the pride, and he flies off, which is very different from the original when Zazu says, I'll go get help, and then Scar flings him into the rock and knocks him senseless, right? But then more as I thought about this, I'm like, man, that was really a plot hole in the first movie, that Zazu knew that Scar had plotted to do something. Why didn't Scar just kill Zazu after Zazu knew this? Why did he keep him alive? And why didn't Zazu tell people what Scar had done? I think they actually ended up fixing this plot hole in the 2019 version. And then there was this interesting conversation that Scar had with Sarabi. It sounded like Scar and Mufasa both had a chance to win her hand, her paw, and apparently Sarabi chose Mufasa over Scar. I think this just added a little bit to give you another reason why Scar maybe was so jealous of Mufasa. Overall, I was really pleased with how well they stuck to the original storyline, and obviously I really did enjoy this movie quite a lot. But as I said before, I'm finding that's a very unpopular opinion. So in the comments below, please tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how much you disliked the movie for this, that, and the other reason. Can't wait to read all about it. As always, it would help me out a bunch if you gave this video a big thumbs up and clicked that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the Disney fun over here on Lend Me Your Ears. Until next time, this is Melanie saying we'll see you again soon at the movies. Jon Favreau. So I guess that means that my favorite Disney remake No, I messed that joke up. Face before it looks for a back of... Not back, lack. Blah, 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 blah.